targets to address it.
Yeah, I think that was the main topic of the team meeting that you talked to them after. So it was not something that, it's almost like them bringing that up means that they understood the message. I think, myself as the head coach, you're accountable for all things, and you're adjusting as you see the team needs you to adjust. I think it starts with me ultimately because I'm accountable for all things on the field, specifically during the season, and I think I'm not going to waver. I think it was very clear. I also think that part of my motives were to make sure that without any varying confusion, that guys came to work in the once we start the phase one of 2025, fully knowing the expectations and how things were going to be addressed. And I think they need to you don't get anywhere if you're constantly. I can find people till they're blue in the face. I can take their money. I can yell at them, but until they understand that part of the reason that we're in the position is controllable, and we have to, with absolute certainty and zero tolerance for anything else, we have to clean the controllables up, and we can have a chance to have success together. So, there was a reason that was a overall theme for the final team meeting. And the whole key is that they understand the expectations, and that they not only understand the expectations but embrace them, which sometimes take hard lessons to do.
Why was that a problem this year?
I think there's a multitude of reasons you can go into. There's certain specific individuals that I don't think it was across the board. There was a lot of guys that had certain fines before that didn't have any. There were some people that had multiple that I think there's different ways to kind of counteract that. Bringing it up as a team and continue to fine guys wasn't enough. So I'm not going to continue to just place all blame on even some of the small list of individuals that were multiple offenders. I'm going to adjust my process and make sure that it's team-wide knowledge anytime that things are done that aren't in the best interest of winning football games. So, there's a bunch of different reasons. And one thing I did learn during the course of the season is that finding guys, and which I'd been a part of for season after season in the National Football League, finding guys didn't particularly move the needle in the way we need to. So I'll adjust as I should as the head coach.
Mike, do you feel that the Tyreek relationship with you, is that fixable?
The relationship, we met for, I want to say an hour yesterday. And I think there's the competitive spirit of his, can represent, post game, especially in a season or a game that nobody likes. It could allude to a relationship being one way. I think I was very direct with him. He was very honest, and it was great terms that we were discussing. Discussed multiple things, including without wavering, that it's not acceptable to leave a game and won't be tolerated in the future. And he embraced accountability, and it was. I wouldn't say there's anything necessarily to fix, as much as we had to clear the air in a rough and tumultuous situation.
Mike, when you talk about the fines not being enough, and you mentioned Tyreek leaving the game, does this team need culture change from that standpoint? And what would be a punitive action if somebody continues being late or if somebody takes themselves out of a game?
Yeah, I mean, there's the ultimate ultimatum, which is, it's pretty simple. I think it's important that you let guys know that, we're at the point in our team where guys are firmly aware of the expectations, and if your actions continually lead to finable offenses, that you're telling me without words that you don't want to be here. So it's, I think it's very clear. I think it's not an indictment necessarily of all, but we are subject to everyone's actions as a football team. So we'll address those as such.
Stephen Ross is bringing both of you back, but his statement indicated he's not content with the current results, as Chris, your opening statement also indicated. So is there some understanding at your levels that things need to change for the better and fast for you guys to continue in those roles?
Steve and I have conversations about every other day on everything. And so he was frustrated just like we all are. And it's no different from any season. Every season is postseason. We evaluate, we go through, we work with the coaching staff, scouts, and we evaluate everything from top to bottom, from medical, strength, video, everything. And so we're going to meet with him and do like we do every year. We meet with him we spend some time and get with him and go through everything from the roster breakdown, the salary cap, what we look like for the future. So those expectations have been on us from day one. So it's nothing that was new or unexpected. He wants to win more than anyone, and we want to win for him. Very appreciative for everything he's done for not just the Dolphins, but South Florida and everything. And he deserves a winner, and it's our job to do it.
Yeah, you guys have been in the NFL for a long time, both of you guys. Is it crazy to be talking about stuff that happens in high school, guys being late to practice? And shouldn't that be policed by the leaders and the captains on a team? And your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that is part of it, and I agree. When players are elected captains, it has a role, and people want to say, player-driven team and stuff. Players have to be accountable for each other. Coaches aren't around them 24/7. Myself, we don't see things, and at the end of the day, you police themselves too. And when there's issues, it gets up to the head coach or position coaches, and you deal with it. That's how I started with, everyone knows who my mentors are, Mike's as well. And we have a lot of good people in the locker room, a lot of strong personalities. We have a lot of guys that love football, and that's not in question by anyone. Now, the intentionality of things, sometimes maybe in their way of doing things, they didn't realize the residuals or things that may have happened on the side. It's clearly understood now, and Mike's message to the team was very well received, and that was the one thing everyone talked about so far through exit interviews, is that they're very excited for next year to be back here and want to be back here with the players on the roster.
Chris, how would you evaluate the play of the backup quarterbacks this season, and how will you approach that position this offseason given Tua's injuries this past year?
No, it's a good question. And it's with us, obviously we had drafted Skyler here, 3 years ago, and he started the playoff game and almost beat Buffalo on the road. We lost 34-31. We beat the Jets to get into the playoffs. And then and just watching him work through the following year, which he never got a chance because Tua stayed healthy, played the entire season. So we were excited about him and his growth, and the players believed in him. He won the backup job through the spring. But that said, as we always do throughout that entire offseason, and Mike and Steve is aware of it through it, we were in on a number of top-flight backup quarterbacks in the league. We were runner-ups for a couple of them that we wanted to get here. And for some financial restraints and compensatory pick stuff, we just couldn't go to those prices. But all those guys wanted to come here, and so it's a position that we did not take lightly. We were working through that the entire off season, and the fact that some of those guys were willing to come here at what we could pay them. It shows how they believe in Mike and the staff and the offensive scheme and the players that are here. They're all excited about our skill group. So that's a position we will always focus on, and it will be a position that we will focus on this offseason. And I will tell you, every stone will be unturned at that position, including the draft.
Into his first year after you signed him to the extension, what is your evaluation of that first year? And has he missed 6 games?
Mm-hmm. Me or Mike?
At the same time?
For me, it was good to see his growth as a player when he was playing. I would say that the one thing that has come out of this, even this year, was the leadership part. Is all the players were talking about his leadership and the step he's taken, and had a couple of our free agents that come in said he was one of the best leaders they've ever been around for a quarterback. And to see where he's come from his early time here was impressive. That being said, he needs to be available. Like, he needs to know how to protect himself. Like, you're going to get hit at times. It's always going to happen. But he needs to control what he can control. He understands that. Not being available for taking chances and risks is unacceptable to us, and he knows that.
Mike, do you think this team needs more aggression and physicality?
I don't think you'd ever say less in football. I think there's a lot of things, depending on what story you want to tell. I think there's a lot of times there's physical play in all 3 phases that were there, and there's times that it wasn't enough. I think that's something that each off season you evaluate. You try to make sure that the physicality is a forefront in how you approach things, and then with all the problem solving that you do every off season, you are able to focus on particular things more because of the assets that you have accumulated and built, and that changes every year where your focus can be. I think it's easy and appropriate to say that our physicality was shortchanged in short yardage situations. I think we have tremendous room to improve there, and I see that as an opportunity because you're trying to bridge the gap with where you fall short and find ways to make gains. And I think with absolute certainty that's a part of our football that can and will improve. And I think, I think that's there's physical components that I was very happy with. In particular, our zone defense versus check downs and how guys were eliminating space, what we call vice tackles. I think there's a tremendous physicality that really showed its face, particularly the middle of the season on. I think there was growth in that area, but you can't ever say you're good there. It's a physical game, so how are you going to dictate the terms? Bottom line is, if you're 8-9, you didn't dictate the terms enough. So we have to find ways to do that.
Chris, Stephen Ross said before the season, if we stay healthy, we're certainly a contender for the Super Bowl. Didn't stay healthy, not a contender for the Super Bowl. Do you feel that you need to increase emphasis on track record of durability when evaluating any additions?
It's always a fine line. Like, there's a 100% injury rate in football. We always talk about that. Mike said it numerous times. We always look at it. We always have discussions with our medical staff. We look at guys' injury history from when they were in college and high school stuff too when we go back. So there's always risk in signing players, but you also don't want to miss the opportunity of having or adding a good player to your roster and being afraid to make a move and missing out on someone that may become a really good player for you because you're scared of something that happened a couple years ago.
Chris, it's social media's favorite comments to fall back on every season, but the offensive line. Are you at a point where you do feel concerned about it? I know, Austin missed a lot of the season, but, I don't know what Teron's plans are for the future, but like, how do you evaluate what needs to happen on the offensive line moving forward?
Yeah, I know that's. I'm surprised it took that long to ask it. And really, when I said that, and I'm not trying to backtrack, I believe in that, but I will always support a group of guys that have worked with a coach that we believe in, that tirelessly works to improve, and that group did nothing but work, and it's the hardest working group in the building. Like, if you stay after practice, and you guys have seen there sometimes, you guys go back out and walk in the lock, those guys are still out on the field working. And so with that group, it started the 2023 offseason, it was, are they good enough, whatever, and we were the number one offense, number one yards per rush. And so we ran it back with a lot of those guys while adding Brewer, who was, I think, an addition that people weren't concerned about because they were focused on another player that wasn't here. And rightfully so, that player was a good player for us. But adding Patrick Paul, we feel that he's going to be a good player. Myers, the undrafted rookie that made our roster as a developmental center. So we feel we have some good pieces. And Austin was a huge loss, and it's through week 9 or 10 we were still up there running the ball, moving, playing well, and it was a huge loss for us. And then once he went down, it was like a slow bleed out the rest of the year with guys just playing through stuff, being nicked, battled, and bruised. So, we had games where, Jackson Carmen was playing tackle. We just, I think people forget Keon Smith was a huge loss for us. We had we had teams trying to trade for Keon, and we were excited about him, and he got hurt in preseason. Wynn was a setback. We thought he was going to be back much quicker than it happened, and he did not come back till late in the season. When I was saying it wasn't concerned, I'm always concerned. You're always concerned about injury, but I did think we had created some depth. We had some players that were very confident in Butch and Mike and the scheme and staff. And those guys, I thought, deserved some praise because of what they had done the year before. And they started out the year well, and unfortunately injuries got to us. We didn't finish well. But, yes, going forward, Teron and I had a conversation briefly yesterday. We're going to talk again here and sometime in the next few days or coming weeks. But also knowing that, this will be we're going to have to invest in the offensive line now. Like Kendall did a fantastic job here for a few years, and we're just older there now and win. So, yes, this is the time again, like we did back a few years ago with Austin and Rob Hunt and Solomon Kinley and stuff. This is a time for us to again start investing in some offensive linemen.
Mike, regarding the offense, the system that you ran in 2022 and 2023 ran into some problems early this year. You went to a different system. What's the offense going to look like in 2025?
I think the system is the same. It's the emphasis and how to attack how people are defending you, and simply put, going into the season, you can just articulate like this: like, all defenders were deeper, wider, and there's probably 2 safeties standing deep pre-snap where they were vulnerable in years previous. So the system, if you execute it appropriately within it, you have to make people pay for what they are taking away. And once you make people pay, then it opens it back up for those short drives that we all love, and those explosive plays. And I think it took us a little bit longer for various reasons, including Tua's first injury, that I feel like we didn't start seeing normal defense until the Raiders game, where we got a couple zeros and blitzes, and at that point in the season, we had worked to that point, and that's what you have to be able to take advantage of what the defense is not taking away while they're trying to take something else. So I think our ability to execute, in all three levels of the pass game, not just short, not just long, but you have to complement those things so that you are able to, regardless of how people plan for you, be able to go on Sunday and be able to move the ball and score points. I think it was a process based upon offensive success for both coaches and players to get used to anticipating or to expect the unexpected. Probably have gone 25 games with in a row where teams are playing or introducing different coverages or different personnel groups or matching personnels differently than what they put on tape. But as you grow as an offense and have experiences with each other and execute the finer details of all three levels, you are best prepared to make people pay for defending the deep stuff, so then they cover the short stuff so you can throw the deep stuff. It's a endless cycle that has kind of, we've built the system around our players and continue to work at how to make sure all aspects are utilized.
So it's safe to say that Tyreek would remain the number one option offensively if he comes back next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think if they're not doubling him, I don't see effective offense being predetermining what you're going to do regardless of defense. I think you have to be able to, everybody gets paid in this league, and every week you have different matchups, and I don't go into a season saying we're going to be this. I see our assets, I see our matchups, and I think it's really my true job is to evolve to the situations based upon our players and the opposing team's players and scheme. So that will always adjust. I don't think it's effective offense to throw the ball up into double coverage and throw to where the defense is. And so we'll always make sure that we complement each other so that there's no one asset that people can double. You have to make people pay other places. Case in point, Jonnu Smith's productivity. I think he really helped us out with taking advantage of the space that was given up to cover some of the deep zones, from both Reek and Waddle, and the more effective you are at doing that, then once you prove that you can march down the field and beat very preventative, cautious defenses, you have time of possession and you score a touchdown, they will try to get you off the field in different ways, and that's what opens up the full utility belt of offense.
Chris, you have a long list of pending UFAs, and Javon Holland's the name who stands out there. How much of a priority will it be to try to re-sign him?
Yeah, we had conversations throughout the summer with Javon and his agent. Javon's been a good player here. I've watched him grow both on and off the field as a person. You guys have got to see his personality too here. We put those on hold once the season started. Both sides agreed, let's just focus on the year. We're going to go through everything, and like we always do, and talk through this year and see what happens here in the offseason.
Chris, just looking at how you construct your roster, given the top of the AFC and the quarterbacks that are there and the cold weather, how much does that factor in, knowing that most likely you've got to develop a team to potentially go on the road and beat those teams in a playoff game?
No, I think you always look, like, especially for us, listen, like Buffalo has been the top dog in the AFC East now. So we're always looking at how we can beat them as well as the Jets and Patriots, because you win your division, you get in the playoffs. So that is a focus. I think a lot of those times in some of those cold weather games, it's self-inflicted wounds. We found a way to beat ourselves. Even last week, we turned the ball over 3 times, including in the red zone a couple times. And until this team figures out ways to stop doing it, nothing's going to change. So we need to change that narrative and find a way to win. You know, Buffalo this year wasn't a cold game, but we went up to Buffalo and lost on a 61-yard field goal, guys. And we played them on that Saturday night, you know, a year or so, whatever it was, and another shootout in the cold. So the guys can play. We can play in there. It's just the self-inflicted wounds that we do, and it seems to show up at the wrong time. And team like Kansas City, you know, in that game too, at the end, we had a chance to tie it into overtime. And until these guys figure that out, nothing's going to change. We work tirelessly and talk about it constantly, and I think the players are tired of it too. And so I think that's the big step for these guys and us as a team here next offseason to in that narrative.
Chris, there's been reports of teams showing interest in your defensive coordinator, Anthony Weaver. Will those requests be granted, and how do you evaluate his first year with you?
Yeah, the requests have been granted. He said a couple. Anthony, for me, and I'll let Mike talk a little bit more. First of all, the person, tremendous human being, and just how he carries himself, handles himself. You can tell when he walks into a room, he just commands respect. A lot of the players, even here, I'm sure Mike will spend more, or just talk about how he enjoyed playing for him. And that was from everyone, even before when we made calls on him, when Mike wanted to interview him, everyone talked about the person. It's been a great year working with him and just getting to know him as a person. I think any organization would benefit tremendously for him. I would hate for him to leave us, because then that's possibly a 4th defensive scheme for the defensive guys to go through. But I highly recommend him for anyone. He's a tremendous human being and football coach.
I wasn't aware we could block him for a head coaching job, but I think he's more than deserving. He's fully equipped with the football knowledge, and more importantly, he's a relationship builder and maintainer. We obviously thought highly of him by hiring him, and he followed through above and beyond. And I think will be greatly served if we're fortunate enough to have him another year. But will not be surprised. Very deserving, and I see him. It's not if, but when. For him to get a head coaching opportunity, whether it's this year or in the years moving forward.
Will you consider delegating play calling duties? Is that something that you think could benefit the overall, as you evaluate the overall operation?
Yeah, I think I always consider it, just because that's something that I don't enter into because for any other reason. But I think the team's best served with me calling the plays. The second that changes, I'll change that. It's not a self-serving process, and part of the evaluation process in general is am I doing this because I'm the best person to facilitate this within this offense and our players, and the second that changes, I'll change.
Chris, it was 5 years ago that there was an intentional reset, a massive accumulation of assets